As a fearless officer in the Army of South Vietnam, Tran Ngoc Harry Hue's valiant actions and exceptional leadership during the Vietnam War led him to save countless American and South Vietnamese lives, creating an unrivaled legacy of heroism. Born in Hue City, Vietnam on January 4, 1942, Tran Ngoc Hue, nicknamed Harry by his U.S. advisors, was exposed to the characteristics of a military leader at a young age, as many of his ancestors served in Vietnam. His father was a junior officer in the VNA. He stood for true independence and rejected communist ideas, principles that became a large motivator in Harry's life. Near the end of World War II, the Trans were forced to flee to enemy territory in the city of Cái Mon after the Japanese occupied their home city of Hue. When Harry was only 8 years old, he witnessed an injustice that would greatly influence his future decisions. The Viet Minh, pro-communist soldiers, buried government prisoners alive in the middle of town. After this horrific display, French soldiers were sent to Cái Mon to administer justice. However, the French caused mass destruction and chaos, and even raped one of Harry's young cousins. After these events, Harry vowed revenge on all that opposed democracy. Harry attended a boarding school dedicated to educating the sons of the Army of the Republic of Vietnam, or ARVN, officers. This school aimed to train future leaders of the ARVN. It was here that Harry and his teachers realized his natural abilities as a leader. After completing his schooling, Harry enrolled in the prestigious Vietnamese National Military Academy at Dalat. He excelled academically and had a determination that set him apart. Because of this, Harry knew he would become a leader in the fight for self-determination for the people of Vietnam. He graduated with the rank of second lieutenant in the ARVN. He went to war immediately after his training.
Every young person in South Vietnam had to join the armed forces to fight the enemy of the country if those people wanted to survive and live in a democratic nation.
The Vietnam War began in 1954 when North Vietnam expressed their desire to unify the entire country of Vietnam under communist rule. However, the South Vietnamese opposed communist ideas and preferred a country modeled after Western principles. U.S. involvement came in small increments, starting in the 1950s, with numbers increasing greatly in 1961. In 1963, the year that Harry graduated from the VNMA and entered the war, South Vietnam's president was assassinated. This led to 2 years of an unstable South Vietnamese government and thus a sharp decline in ARVN morale. Harry received his first command as part of the 3rd Company, 1st Battalion, 1st Regiment of the 1st ARVN Division. He took over as platoon commander and assistant company commander. Harry quickly established himself as a leader. He called for strict discipline, knowing that any indiscipline or barbarism of ARVN soldiers would push locals to supporting the enemy. Harry led by example and focused on creating close relationships with his men. Harry was loved and respected among his men for being a fair and honest leader, which in turn caused morale in the unit to increase substantially. His characteristics were in contrast to many officers in the ARVN who tended to be corrupt leaders. Harry overcame this stereotype of corruption and was recognized by his comrades as an unsung hero. Harry's United States advisors shared the same feelings towards him. One of his advisors, Lieutenant Colonel James Coolican, said,
"One of the things that kind of would make Harry a very good leader, and one of the best that I served with, is that Harry, first of all, never expected his men to do something that he wouldn't do himself. And secondly, Harry always had the welfare of his soldiers in mind."
The peak of Harry's military career came during the 1968 Tet Offensive. During Tet, the Lunar New Year, and an important Vietnamese holiday, a ceasefire had been signed. However, the North Vietnamese planned a series of attacks in order to catch the South Vietnamese off guard. By this time, Harry had been assigned to lead the Hac Bao Company, which consisted completely of volunteers and was also known as the Black Panthers. This was a fast reaction force summoned when other members of the ARVN couldn't arrive to a battle in time, or when a certain company needed reinforcement. During the Tet Offensive, the North Vietnamese targeted Harry's home city of Hue. Harry was awakened in his home by artillery fire and left his young family to join this company and fight off the NVA soldiers. Harry and his company's heroic actions saved 2 American soldiers from the battlefield and killed 50 enemy soldiers. The NVA succeeded in taking hold of the citadel at Hue. After a month of grueling and bloody battle, the Arvin regained the citadel, due in large part to Harry.
I would say that Harry's unit was probably the one most significant that prevented the North Vietnamese from capturing the whole city, and then later on, as the battle went on, was instrumental in defeating the North Vietnamese in the city of Hue.
Harry's leadership during the Tet Offensive saved countless lives and created a legacy of bravery and selflessness. In 1971, while searching for enemy supplies, Harry was wounded for the 5th time as enemy forces overran his company. With most of 3 fingers on one hand now missing, he ordered his men to leave him behind and save themselves. As a result, Harry was taken as prisoner of war by the NVA. He was held at the notorious Hanoi Hilton. Numerous times, the North Vietnamese attempted to break Harry down and convince him to fight for them. Harry refused to defect, even after being forced to live under horrendous conditions, including 6 months of solitary confinement.
My physical body became weaker and weaker every day, but my spirit was very strong because when I judged myself, I knew I did the right thing to protect my people and keep my country out of the arms of the invaders.
Harry was kept at the Hanoi for 6 months before being transferred to a POW camp, where he was again kept in solitude. After 2 years of his imprisonment, in 1973, the Paris Peace Accords were signed and the United States began its withdrawal from Vietnam. In addition, all prisoners of war were to be liberated and returned to their home country. However, when freedom was in sight for Harry, he was informed that the treaty did not apply to him and he was sent back to the POW camp. Harry fell into deep depression but found solace through the Bible he was given. In 1975, the Arvin fell to the NVA, and any hope Harry held on to that the South would come out of the war victorious was destroyed. Shortly after, Harry was transported to a re-education camp. One of Harry's U.S. advisors, David Wiseman, was determined to find Harry and bring him to the United States. Wiseman was deeply impacted by Harry during the time they worked together and wanted his legacy to be known. After 13 years of imprisonment, and additional time spent under close watch in Vietnam, Harry was successfully brought to the U.S. in 1991, along with his wife Cam and 3 daughters. The Trans worked hard to make a new life for themselves. Currently, Harry lives in Falls Church, Virginia.
Tran Ngoc Way believed in the freedom of his people and never gave up that hope, even after arriving in this country as a refugee. That is his biggest legacy, one of hope.
In addition to numerous Vietnamese awards, Harry received the U.S. military's Bronze Star for his leadership and heroism. Furthermore, for his dauntless actions during the Tet Offensive in 1968, he is one of the only Vietnamese soldiers to be awarded the Silver Star, the highest honor given by the U.S. military to a foreign ally.
Colonel Way stood unquestioned and universally admired. Every inch the hero, even by the exacting standards of the U.S. Marines.
Harry's leadership saved many American and South Vietnamese lives and made a significant difference in a number of important battles. His actions left a great legacy of loyalty and humanitarianism.
Very few American Vietnamese veterans know who Harry was or is, and he, along with his fellow soldiers in the 1st South Vietnamese Infantry Division, were the best fighters their country had to offer.
Harry's legacy of heroism and leadership is still embraced by the U.S. military today. He has worked closely with U.S. advisors by providing insight into how our troops can best collaborate with the indigenous population to achieve military goals. This provided the blueprint used by our military in successful collaboration with our foreign allies in the Iraq War. As a fearless officer in the Army of South Vietnam, Tran Ngoc Harry Hue's valiant actions and exceptional leadership during the Vietnam War led him to save countless American and South Vietnamese lives, creating an unrivaled legacy of heroism.
I didn't